Hello everyone, and welcome to Sear. On the podcast, we talked about the state of the game, and I felt I was way too hard in the game. If you haven't seen the podcast yet, I will have a link in the video description, and hopefully I will make a card show up to link to it. So the current state of the game is indeed poor, and it's easy to look back on past expansions and say it was better. However, some parts of that is true, but some of the current items in the game are much better than in the past. What I'm going to list below is in no particular order. It's not a ranking system, it's just what I thought about when I was listening to the podcast. So let's get started. Account-wide mounts. This was a very nice feature added in the game. It helped when leveling an alt to save money on mounts. You still have to buy the expertise, the right amount, because unless you paid someone 25 gold or 50 gold, whatever it was, you were too stupid to write amount. But as long as you learned a mount on a different character, your alt could also use it. So if you had the mount with a vendor on it, you could use that mount when your bags are full instead of trying to go to a questing hub area or to a major city. It also helped for people who collected mounts. It also helped out people who collected mounts. There's also a nice feature for people who changed their mains. For example, I did a Death Knight as my main for Wrath, and I got a lot of mounts on that character, but was a bit sad when I couldn't access them on other characters. It was also very expensive. Arilinn. This gear you sent to alts to help them level. This did a few things, as I said before, helped the alt level faster due to the extra experience on the piece of gear, but also made when you're leveling, you don't have to worry about gear as much. The problem with making leveling faster is that it can cause you to run to a wall where you can't beat this mob or you can't do this quest because the gear you have on is just too low for what you're trying to do. So to solve that problem, the heirlooms also leveled up with you. And with the recent changes in Warlords, it helped alts level from 1 to 100, as long as you had the goal to do so. I'm not happy about the price for the upgrades, but I like the option to buy almost any piece of gear and upgrade it to help my alts level. Regen Bank. This is a feature I haven't heard too much about, and I think it's overlooked, but in your character's bank, you have a new option for regens. You get more bank space just for crafting items. This is a nice feature, one I use on all my characters. It did get rid of regen specific bags, but it did give you more room in both your bank and your character for just pure bag space. Dungeon Finder. This one has mixed reviews on it, but at the end of the day, it is a good tool for any player. Being able to select the role, and hitting a button, and being ported to a dungeon save time. And while it was trying to find you a match, it let the player do something else. But it did have some bad side effects. If you never ran a dungeon before and you died, you may not know where the entrance to the dungeon is. In Cataclysm, Blizzard tried to do a fix where you had to discover the dungeon first, but by the time they put that fix in, players were already too used to the old way, and that got removed. Some will argue that it just killed the community, or the community aspect of the game, sitting in trade chat or general chat looking for a tank or healer or whatever. But I disagree, because it helped my guild actually get new members. Queuing up, running a dungeon, not being asshats, we got quite a few members from it who would server transfer to join the guild. Looking for raid. Much like Dungeon Finder tool, this has a lot of negativity attached to it. But it did make raids more accessible for more players. So it lets developers tell more story within a raid opposed to outside the raid. And not just having a small amount of your player base see a raid made raids more feasible to do. Dual Specialization. This feature made it possible for a player to be a tank DPS, tank healer, DPS healer, or choose between 2 different DPS specs or 2 different healing specs for different playstyles. It also made players more versatile for their raid groups. What I mean by that is, if a player leveled as a tank and they joined the guild and they wanted to raid but there was no tank positions available, they could go DPS and DPS for the raid, but if one of the main tanks were out, they can go back to their tanking spec and help the group out. And who knows, maybe helping the group out on that one raid, you might end up being the main tank and the other guy goes, you know what, I've won a DPS for a very long time. So it's a very nice tool. I'm actually sad whenever I play other games that don't have dual specialization for that reason, because now it took you away from being locked to one specialization unless you wanted to spend a lot of money, to being open to different aspects of the game. Now, there are a lot more I could have listed, but these are just ones that came to mind when working on the podcast and feeling it was a bit too hard on WoW. The bottom line is, I love this game. It helped me through some very rough times in my life, and I've made a lot of very good friends because of this game, who also have helped me through the very rough times. I didn't turn to heavy drinking, I turned to WoW. And the suggestions I gave in the podcast, and how hard I was in the game, it's just because I fear the direction the game is going. For lack of a better term, I hope the developers get their heads out of their asses and actually listen to the community on a lot of this stuff. There was a lot of very good feedback that for some reason is not being listened to, or not being shown as being listened to. Yeah, they can say it on the Twitter account, thank you for your suggestion, we're listening to it, but we're not really seeing it. And I wouldn't be so stuck on the fact that we're not seeing it if they want to keep saying, we want your feedback, we want your feedback. Well, if you want our feedback, actually do something with it. Thank you so much for watching. Again, link in the description below will be about for the podcast, so you can listen to that. Mike and myself do a podcast every 2 weeks. And until next time, later.